Welcome back to the Purple State of Mind podcast. My name is Ishaan,
I'm Siddharth.
and today we're going to be talking about the California's governor race that is happening this November in the midterms, and more specifically the primary that is going to set the stage for that midterm. The primary is on June 2nd, and right now Republicans are actually in a pretty strong position to lock Democrats out. However, with Eric Swalwell having to drop out due to personal issues, the door opens up for Democrats a little bit more. So today we're going to be diving into the race, our picks for candidates, and kind of just our overall thoughts on where this race is headed. So Sid, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so for a little bit of context, when he says lock them out, if you don't know, California's election style is a little different. It's not like a Republican primary and a Democrat primary, and then the winners of those primaries don't compete. It's like a poll. There's kind of this polling, or you vote and the top two candidates go to a runoff. Yeah, the reason why surprisingly Republicans are in a strong position right now is because the Democrats have a lot of candidates for this governor race, like right now, a lot of declared candidates, and votes are kind of spread completely through that tally. And the two leading Republicans are Steve Hilton, who's a Brit, which is, again, it's kind of confusing, he's a Brit, and then Chad Bianco, who's the sheriff of Riverside County. Now, for the Democrats, they had, not really a consensus, but a lot of people thought that he would end up winning was Eric Swalwell, but he dropped out. He had a completely his campaign took a 180 based on the reports that came out about him, and his campaign crashed. He pulled out. So who's remaining is Katie Porter, who, if I'm correct, she was the lieutenant governor.
Katie Porter is a sitting congresswoman.
Or sitting congresswoman, sorry. Katie Porter is a sitting congresswoman.
Yeah.
And she's kind of representing, I guess, in my opinion, she's supposed to be representing kind of the anti-corporate kind of progressive aspect, but she also has her own kind of PR issues. Then you have Tom Steyer, who's a environmentalist. He's a billionaire. He ran in the presidential primaries a couple elections ago. I don't know if it was the last one or the one before. He represents kind of the wealthy progressive reformer, and he's poured in an estimated $133 million into his campaign right now, as of right now. However, his big problem is he's a billionaire, and a lot of people are skeptical of that. They're like, why would we vote a billionaire into power being progressives? Then probably somebody who's surged since Swalwell pulled out, and seems to be kind of the safe candidate when it comes to the Democrats, is Javier Becerra. He was Health and
Human Service Secretary.
Health and Human
Biden
Services.
and Attorney General under Newsom.
Yeah. And he kind of represents an establishment he's an establishment Democrat technically. However, he's definitely the safe and competent choice for Democrats. I'm sure in the coming weeks or months they're gonna kind of center around a candidate. I don't see Katie Porter making it very far in this primary. I don't see her winning a lot of support. I think it's gonna come down to Javier Becerra and Tom Steyer, and eventually I think Javier Becerra is gonna come out on top, make it to the top two. So,
yeah. Well, let's start with the person that you just mentioned, Katie Porter. There are a lot of reasons to not like Katie Porter, and the number one reason that a lot of people will point to is her hostile work environment that we have seen through some videos that have surfaced online. And those videos include her yelling at her staff and her just being outright kind of a jerk to people, including a reporter that was asking normal questions that every single other candidate answered except her. And that's obviously horrible. But for me, specifically where I don't like her is that her entire platform is, I hate Donald Trump. And yes, you're right, California does not like Donald Trump, but California also has a lot of problems that need to be fixed. And those problems can't be fixed with you just saying that you hate Donald Trump. So if she actually wants to win this, which she won't, but if she did want to win this, she would put out real proposals, and when she's at the DNC convention in California, her entire message would not be centered around Donald Trump. It would be centered around what she plans to do to make life better for California. And a lot of
Absolutely.
progressives, by the way, don't like her as well because she is a fake progressive at the end of the day. If you want a progressive candidate, Tom Steyer is probably your best choice. However, Tom Steyer also has his problems. The fact that he might just not be electable. But we'll get into Tom Steyer in a bit. Keep going. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that point, Katie Porter. I've been saying this for so long, and I'm not a Democrat in any sense. I'm not a Republican either. But if Democrats want to win, their campaign, and I feel like I thought it would be common sense realistically, but you can't win by just talking about the other party. You're giving them free PR. You're just mentioning their names 100 times. Like people that bet on Kalshi have it so easy when it comes to Katie Porter. They can just say she's going to say Trump 3 times and they're going to make all their money. You need to put out proper policy proposals. This is just crucial to a campaign. She's not going to get it. She isn't very likable in her speaking style. Those videos of her speaking to her staff, at least to me, were quite appalling. And I don't really consider her even a dark horse candidate in this race. I only think the only way that I think she comes out as the Democrat on top is if something goes tremendously wrong with Javier Becerra and Tom Steyer's campaign.
Yeah, and so to move into the Tom Steyer campaign, there are also a lot of reasons to not like him. Number one, for me, he's way too progressive. He is a billionaire preaching anti-billionaire agenda talking points.
He is like a living his political campaign is like a real life oxymoron. Like just
it is.
Picture.
It is, but I think what I find interesting is the fact that he has no actual background in elected office. He has no track record to show California that he is the path forward. And his name to fame in politics has been centered around progressive online social media platforms and running for president in 2020, in which he never had a shot. But I think what's more interesting is the fact that he's almost capped his ceiling at where he is right now. Because when you've dropped over, as you said, $130 million into your campaign and you still don't have a majority of the vote, it shows that you might just not be electable. The people might just not be responsive to what you're saying. If you live in California, every single ad on your TV is likely Tom Steyer. Mm-hmm. And none of the ads have appealed to me, at least, especially the one where he was acting like the cameras weren't rolling.
That one
and
was
he
bad.
continued to talk. That's an insanely bad ad. But either way, Tom Steyer is not the choice for California. My biggest problem with him is he has no track record. He has no experience in elected office. He has no experience showing the American people or the people of California what he can actually do. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, again, when we actually look at we're both kind of talking about the optics here, but even when you look at his policy plan, there's actually like I do like to some extent what he says about nonviolent offenders, that they should be rehabilitated, and that we need to unclog our prisons. Our prisons are stuffed with people that have offenses like like recreational drug use, for things that are now legalized. And we need to revisit that and make sure these people can get back, get justice and go through the legal process. And we can empty our prisons out and make sure that there's not only humane conditions in prisons, we're not overspending in prisons, and we're also putting violent criminals away. However, many Californians probably still, and I understand this is the progressive state, and I guess it kind of, maybe not the progressive state, but the capital of progressivism in this country, the origins of progressivism. You look at San Francisco and you're like, yeah, that's the city. However, when you look at a lot of even rural voters or suburban voters, they're very skeptical about things like rent control, because those policies don't necessarily apply in all places. And there's been constant policy debate about it. Additionally, when he says he wants to close corporate tax loopholes, it's similar to kind of what Donald Trump used to say, where he was like, I've cheated the system, I know how to fix it. The guy himself has made billions of dollars, and we're supposed to expect that he's going to close the loopholes which helped him become a billionaire. Now, like you said, at the end of the day, the optics is what matters, and spending $130 million and not even being, and still being in a very, very close clash within your own party is telling, and that shows that voters are very skeptical.
And honestly, what you were saying about Tom Steyer and prisons is actually one of the best things that I think Gavin Newsom has done so far in his time in office. He turned the San Quentin prison, one of the oldest prisons in California, into a rehabilitation center. And what we have seen is reincarceration rates dramatically drop. Because when you give people the resources and the whereabouts to be able to go out into the real world and get a job, a bunch of people as well who were raised in gangs and who never really knew anything else, who resorted to violence as the only way of providing for themselves. When you show them the way out and you show them an actual opportunity and a lifestyle that works, you clean up the streets a lot better than any other form of mass incarceration. But going back to Steyer and all of his proposals, I think that's a good one. But going to one thing that he said about jailing ICE agents, I thought, and trust me, I don't like ICE. I don't like the way that Donald Trump has deployed ICE, but jailing ICE agents is insane to me because at the end of the day, these are people doing a job that has been put to them by the president, by Stephen Miller. The people who deserve to be in jail are the ones who go above and do the excess force that we saw in Minnesota. Not every single ICE agent deserves jail time.
Yeah. I agree with you. It is. I understand. Like, I mean, kind of having to check your tongue a little bit because it is a sensitive topic. There are a lot of people that are they have pretty specific beliefs about ICE when it comes to what they would want to happen to ICE agents. But I agree. And additionally, jailing federal law enforcement is just not a good idea. Like mass jailing federal law enforcement. That doesn't. And also, I don't even think he's within his power to do that as governor. Like maybe he is, but I don't think he's going to be as effective as he thinks. That's kind of just like a populist talking point. Now, kind of finishing up on Steyer, you move into the safe and competent candidate who's Javier Becerra. Now, some of his policies are building more housing, which I am in favor of. I think that is so important. We need to build more. We're about 4.7 million houses short. I believe, and we build less housing per year than like how new households are formed, like new families. So that has to catch up whatsoever. Expanding healthcare, again, there's a lot of niche with that, but in a state like California, I think that's something that the people want. I may not agree with every policy, but if it's what do the Californians want, and in the current system we have, I don't really see that as too bad of a thing. And then the third, one of his important points, which I am a big fan of, is investing in education. Now, the nuance there is that I don't want to invest in, non-essential things or kind of like passions or like, I mean, I understand like that's going to be an aspect, but like courses that have any sort of political influence in them. However, investing in education is huge because education is like the pillar of society. Look at every golden age in history. You look at the Islamic golden age. You look at the Roman Empire. You look at all these places. Their education system was top tier, and they prioritized it. And that's something that's really important for the state of California. I think we'll see less criminals if they do that. I think that we'll see less dropouts, less homeless people, less people who are struggling financially, and less people that just lack ethics. That's something that's crucial. On homelessness, providing mental health and social support, that's a good thing, especially in a state like California where people will support it. And then my favorite thing about his crime approach, this is kind of general. I haven't really read into the specifics of the policy, just kind of from what I've read and what I've heard. He has a more balanced approach, a mix of rehab and enforcement, and that's kind of the sweet spot. You need to find the sweet spot there, but if he's able to find that sweet spot, I think he'll be really effective.
Absolutely. And if there was any
I can't believe I just like bigged up a Democrat like that. But
if there's any opposite to the sporadic nature of Tom Steyer, it's the calm and reasonable, rational choice in Javier Becerra. And I'm going to back everything that you just said and go into a little bit more of his background. Now, he was a congressman, actually, for a long time in California, and then he became Gavin Newsom's attorney general and then Joe Biden's health and human service secretary, coming out of the pandemic, which was, by the way, not exactly an easy role to have. And one of a few things that I thought that he's done really well was he implemented the Inflation Reduction Act at his time under Biden, which allowed Medicare or Medicaid, I think it was Medicare, to negotiate prescription drug prices, and that was actually a pretty big win under the Biden administration. They got a lot of prescription drugs down in cost, and we have seen, as Attorney General, he sued the Trump administration over 100 times in order to protect California. Now, when we see a bunch of these federal health care cuts, and we see the Trump administration going after Medicare, Medicaid, all of this stuff, Gavin Newsom's office said that over 3.4 million Americans and 3.4 million Californians, to be specific, could lose their health care as a result of federal budget cuts. And what we have seen from Javier Becerra is he cares about making sure that California stays protected. And so that's personally why I think I would cast my ballot for him, and why I probably will cast my ballot for him on June 2nd. And going further than just that, you got to remember, this guy has been around politics for a long time. He understands what the rational approach is. If you want to talk about poverty and homelessness, look at the way that a centrist candidate in San Francisco, Daniel Lurie, the mayor of San Francisco, has done a tremendous job cleaning up the streets. He has done a tremendous job. Now, obviously, there are still areas, the Tenderloin isn't all clean, but he's done a great job making sure that San Francisco becomes a city that tourists can once be at again, that people who live there aren't fearing for their lives every single day. But that's just my little spiel on why I believe that we should have more of a centrist candidate right now running rather than a Tom Steyer or somebody who has these outlandish thoughts but doesn't really have the way of implementing them that we might like. And so what I'm very interested to see is early May there's going to be a housing forum with New York Times Ezra Klein as the moderator of that debate, and pretty much every single candidate who has over 5% is going to be included in that debate. So I'm very interested to see how they take this abundance mindset of Ezra Klein and say, here's how we're going to implement it into California, how we're going to make sure that the high-speed rail project, for instance, stays on track, and if it's not working out, slash the thing. Just slash it.
Now, I'm not really, even though he's technically the front runner, I'm not gonna. You can, but I'm not gonna talk about Steve Hilton because I just couldn't get behind voting for a British
I will
guy
talk
running
about
for
Steve
governor.
Hilton a little bit. I'm gonna talk about how he was the lead strategist for one of the worst prime ministers in Britain, in David Cameron. One of the worst prime ministers in history, David Cameron. He led Brexit. He led the geopolitical strategy of Brexit, which is one of the worst failures in modern history. He is honestly one of the worst candidates I've seen. Never held elected office yet, is another one of those Fox News hosts, and we've seen how well that works out, right, Pete Hegseth? Mm-hmm. We've seen how well that works, and yet somehow he thinks that he can run California, fourth largest economy in the world. He can run California. He could run it into the ground like he did with Britain, but
yeah, he's kind of pulling the I'm just going to make everything cheap and fair and beautiful strategy. And I really think the only reason he's getting voters is just Republicans. They have two candidates to pick from, so it's a lot more simple for them. It's like, two big candidates.
Mind you, Britain hates David Cameron.
Yeah,
they hate him for a reason.
Yeah, I quickly wanted to touch on Chad Bianco, and the one thing I have to say about him is this: if his main priority is public safety, and he's the sheriff of Riverside, this guy does not have the qualifications to do public safety for the whole state. Riverside is not the public safety place. That is not where you want to go.
9.2%, I believe.
What do you mean?
Is there 9.2% of class 1 crime they solved, which is the lowest in the state and half of the state average?
Riverside County has a lot of crime. And, again...
Yeah, it's the worst. They had the most deaths under their...
He's also, he's too hardline for governor. Californians are not going to elect him. That's.
He's also an oath keeper, if that...
Mm-hmm. That's a deal breaker for a lot of people, so...
No, it's not just a deal breaker. It's flat out disqualifying. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how he's still in the race. Honestly, the Trump administration going out and endorsing Steve Hilton might have been the worst thing for his campaign because if that's the reason that Chad Bianco loses, you lost all of your hope at a Steve Hilton at Steve Hilton winning the governor's race, because we were actually in a position where Republicans could have taken it, but Donald Trump swooped in and said, I'm going to endorse Steve Hilton. Remember, California has, the second most Trump voters in the country, just behind Texas, I believe. And you put all of those Trump voters onto Steve Hilton, tanking the campaign of Chad Bianco, who, by the way, I'm in favor of that. You don't want him to be governor either. But you had a real opportunity for it to be Steve Hilton versus Chad Bianco in the general. Mm-hmm. And you completely tanked that away by endorsing Steve Hilton. I don't know who's advising Donald Trump, but that was just blatantly stupid to me.
Yeah. Also, one thing I just want to add is that if you've seen what Chad Bianco has been doing with the voter rolls in his county, just trying to seize them, I think his thing, operation fell apart, but that's quite concerning. And also how he flip flops between different things. In 2020, he kneeled with BLM, and then 2023 he called them riots, and then 2024 he endorses Trump, calls him a felon in his endorsement video. So it's kind of this guy is definitely not the governor.
In all of that, and he didn't even get the Trump endorsement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a British guy got it.
A Brit. A Fox News host. Brit.
Who voted, I'm pretty sure he voted Green in the UK in the 2000s.
That's funny. See, I honestly love Britain, but why'd they send us the worst of the worst?
Yeah, I know, bro.
There were good people who they could have sent us.
I couldn't tell you.
Doesn't Rishi live in California?
I think so. I think he moved. Bro, Prince Harry lives in California.
Give us Prince Harry. Governor Prince Harry. That'd be fun. Yeah. That would be fun. Okay, well, let's wrap this up. Your endorsement goes to who at this point?
I can't endorse anyone necessarily, but I think the winner will be Javier Becerra. That's who I think will win. It's not necessarily my endorsement, but I also think as of right now he's the most fit candidate, but I couldn't necessarily endorse.
Who would you vote for in the primary on June 2nd?
Probably Javier Becerra. So yeah.
My full endorsement goes to Javier Becerra. I think he's the right man for the job. I think he has the most qualifications and the best track record to do the job. Overall, I just think he's the most fit. He has the experience, specifically being Attorney General and the Health and Human Service Secretary, as well as a congressman, by the way. A congressman who helped get passed key legislation, including the Affordable Care Act. He's done amazing work, and it would be very cool to see a Latino win the governor's race for the first time, especially considering the fact that California, the largest race makeup in this state, is Latin or Latino. Or
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that'll be all for today. We'll see you guys probably next week.